Composer Texu Kim creates original pieces with ordinary ideas. He is full of unique ideas and tries to create new musical pieces by fusing Gugak, modern music, and other genres with classical music. He was a chemistry major, but what made him begin a career as a music composer? Talented, up-and-coming composer Texu Kim appeared out of the blue and is making headlines in Korea and overseas with his exclusive performances. We will learn more about the past, the present, and the future of composer Texu Kim on Heart to Heart. Joining us today on Heart to Heart is Korea's up-and-coming music composer, Texu Kim. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us on the show. Would you like to say hello to our viewers that are watching first?
Hi, my name is Texu Kim, and I'm a composer. It's my real pleasure to be here at Heart to Heart today.
All right, thank you once again for joining us. I'd like to first of all talk about your purpose, the purpose of your visit to Korea, because I'm aware that you reside in America. You work actively in the States. Of course, you do travel not only to Korea, but to other places around the world to perform. So my main question would be, what brings you to Korea this time around?
I am invited to a portrait concert of mine by National Theatre of Korea as a part of Rock Festival.
Yes.
It's a very fascinating festival comprised of lots of great concerts. They invite lots of great musicians from Korea, mostly related to Korean traditional music, and as well as some world music. And they invite one Western music composer every year. And this time I was lucky enough to be there. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm excited for you. Well, before we begin our talk, why don't we take a moment to listen to Texu Kim's works? Let's take a look. Could you tell us about this piece?
I'm not sure you are aware of that snack, but that's called chapsaltop.
Yes.
That's Korean mochi. And when I was a teenager, or even earlier, in the winter, there was always the vendor of chapsaltop. So they wander around the town and then they sing this song, chapsaltop, 메밀묵. And so that's my childhood memory, as well as it's a pleasant thing to remember when I was in America. So I began to write a song about that.
It's very interesting because you did tell us what chapsaltop is. It's mochi, of course, but it's rice cake filled with like sweet, beans? Very delicious. I remember as a child as well, hearing sounds from outside the window, usually male voices yelling out chapsaltop, right?
Right.
So this actually brought back a lot of memories for me as well. What I found especially interesting was that, of course, we do have a non-Korean performing. And I'd like to ask how it was possible for the soloist to fully understand and deliver such a wonderful performance while understanding the Korean sentiments.
There are several things I did to make it more Korean and then to communicate the Koreanness with Western people. One is I have to notate a lot of things, a lot of grace notes, little tiny details, so that they can, if they read it, probably that'll emulate the sentiment even. And also I worked with the soloist tightly, so pronunciation-wise, I had to just audio tape everything, and then just he had to practice a lot. And then I also did some coaching session with him. It's only 6 syllables, but it's a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
quite difficult to pronounce for many people, I'm
Right,
sure.
yeah.
And also usually in like Korean traditional music, there's a lot of interaction between the performer and the audience. And I noticed that the soloist actually stepped onto the stage after the music ensemble started with a basket in his hand, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And then towards the end, he stepped off stage into the audience and then came back on stage.
Right.
So I was wondering what happened during that period.
Okay, that's a great question, by the way. He, in the basket he was holding, there are lots of chapsaltak.
Ah,
So I asked him to just distribute.
I see.
It would be better if he sell it, but no. And he just distributed it as if just he was selling it.
I
So,
see.
and I think that's a feature of Korean music or Korean performances. It's not necessarily meant to be indoor or in a concert hall. The great thing about Korean music is it could happen outdoor, and then it's just part of our lives. You can just come and go, and then you can just you can just talk to the musicians while they are performing,
Yes.
right? So I thought I would embrace that nature of Korean traditional music, and yeah, I think it was very fresh to Western people, of course,
Yes.
but yeah, I think it was fun
Yes.
to do it.
I'm sure the audience loved it and loved the chapsaltak as
Yeah,
well.
they enjoyed
Yes.
that part the most, I think.
So your works are very original, very interesting and very unique. So what was the motivation or occasion for composing such pieces?
I would say I embrace a lot of modern and contemporary Korean culture, and I began it like 5 years ago, that kind of projects. When I began studying and working in America, I realized that, well, I thought I was always very westernized enough, but I realized that, okay, well, I have so many different things than actual American colleagues of mine. So then what makes it so different? And I began focusing on like those elements that are different, and especially when a friend of mine who was a choral conductor at Indiana University where I was doing my doctorate asked me to do something Korean, but not so traditional.
Okay.
So what would that be? And that was my childhood memory would be different from that of people in now like the 60s.
Yes.
So, okay, so probably there is a window I can do, or only I can do. Yeah. So the first one I found was chapsaltak, and then there was a moment of revelation. So, oh, it's a blue ocean. There are a lot of things I can bring, and still nobody has touched, and then very meaningful at the same time because it's a project to update the current state of East Asia or Korea. So it's different. It's not anymore that exotic. The country of morning calm doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, I wanted to just embrace and introduce all those things in my music.
Wow, very interesting.
자, 학생 여러분, 오늘도 힘차게 국민 체조로 하루를 시작하겠습니다. 거기 무슨 놈들 뭐야? 자, 저요. 앞으로 나란히
Composer Texu Kim delicately fuses the Korean culture he experienced through his classical music compositions. His multiple challenges create a new sensation in modern music. Let us hear more about the stories of this promising composer in the global music circle.
I don't know how it works for music. So when you compose music, do you like sketch an idea in your mind first? Do you usually have an image of the music you want to compose and then start writing it down? How does it work?
So I work like a factory. There are different stages.
I
So First stage being like getting ideas. It's actually the most the easiest part for me because well, I look for ideas from just my ordinary life, and so it comes easy. But because it comes so easy, I feel guilty, and then I put a lot of energy to completing the details. Yeah, I do lots of handwritings just to get rid of some guilt, and sketch means like I let it grow. Because if there is one idea, there are lots of possibility for that idea to just grow naturally. So I think about all that. That takes a while. So usually that happens while I write a different piece.
Oh.
So when I say I write different piece, I physically write. Once I complete, I move on to the next stage of writing, like mostly in a way of reduction, smaller, because I want to see the entire thing first in a condensed form, and then I beef it up. That's another stage.
Wow.
So when I work, there are several stages, and then several works going on at the same time, in a different stage.
So far, how many pieces or works have you composed?
On my work list, I have 50 pieces at this point.
And I'm going to give you a very difficult question. It's like asking a parent, which one of your children is your favorite, but which of those 50 would be your favorite? If choosing one's difficult, I'll let you choose two.
Oh, that's very generous. Thank you so much. Yeah, because my works go to two different directions. I think two would be a great idea. One is, I would say, bounce.
Bounce.
With two exclamation points. And the other one is Lotus Voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about bounce.
Bounce. I got the idea of bounce initially when I went to the gym. I sometimes go to the gym, and the first thing I hear or encounter is the squeaks on the basketball.
Yes.
Yeah? And then all those like a basketball bouncing sound.
Right.
So I thought, okay, that might be fun to write a music about. And I did. And so there are lots of things you can imagine from that idea, like how bouncing would sound with musical instruments, and then the instrumentalist could also do some like a physical bouncing.
Yes.
And then as a whole, the group could create some bouncing effect, like if they toss the melody back and forth. So all those things were incorporated in Bounce. It's just a fun. And I had a lot of fun to write. And then the performers enjoyed it, and the audience, what can be better?
Right. I mean, if the performers enjoy it and the audience enjoys it, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
But why two exclamation marks? Why not just one? Why two?
Well, I do that all the time, actually, because I think one is not strong enough. One is lonely, but like three is too much, basically.
Okay. And about your other one, it's Lotus Voice. Could you tell us about that one?
Lotus Voice is a piece for baritone and ensemble, in that the baritone soloist is required to introduce pansori tradition of Korea's own. And well, it's mostly in English, but sometimes the baritone soloist is required to do some demonstration, so he has to do some excerpts of different pansories, mostly chunyanga, and also between the excerpts, he has to, like as if he were lecturing, he had to just explain about pansori or the missed links, like about between the excerpts to explain the story. And it's in the style of pansori as well.
Yes.
Right, because pansori has a unique style of like a talking and performing at the same time. So I incorporate that to just to make it as holistic as possible.
Yes, I searched it. I actually looked it up and I watched and listened to the whole thing. I found it very interesting, and I thought that for non-Koreans that don't know much about Korea or, pansori, Korean traditional music, it was a wonderful chance for them to actually learn about what pansori is and what it feels like to actually watch someone perform. So It was very interesting how you had a screen on top, and it actually, in like parentheses, told the audience when to clap. It's usually in pansori. The audience usually claps around this time. So you were giving an introduction and explanation to what pansori was. But I'm sure, I mean, you obviously demanded these, vocal techniques that the performer was not used to. So how did you train? How did he train for those vocal techniques?
Right. First of all, I was very lucky to have a person who was willing to do it because it's somehow scary. The pansori technique is very demanding and it might hurt your voice. So yeah, I was lucky enough to have that particular soloist. And then, well, I sent lots of videos first of all. And so to just make the person aware about what he is required to do.
I see.
And then after that, we had a lot of communication. I lived in a different city at that point. So yeah, back and forth with recording. I sent a lot of recordings of Korean pronunciations again. And like he sent back and then we checked back and forth and Skype. Yeah, so that's how it worked in terms of making it more Korean.
Yeah, I think he gave a wonderful performance.
Yeah, he did.
Because he did have to do some parts in Korean as well.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. All right. What types of pieces will you release in the near future?
In the immediate future, pianist Jae-hyuk Jo Jae-hyuk, and he also plays organ wonderfully, and then he's having City, which will be recorded at La Madeleine in Paris, France. So it's going to be recorded in a month, and then that's going to be my first project after this.
Wow.
I just finished it actually. So, and then after that, a long-term project I'm doing is a piece about Korean Americans because, well, in terms of anthropology, they froze the Koreanness of their own time when they moved to America. So it has a lot of information of how Korea was. Also, you can see a lot of contribution and interaction they have with American culture, and then they made to American culture. So I wanted to focus on those kind of things. So that's going to be a long-term project. And one more is I'm trying to incorporate and then experiment about Koreanness. So, well, we know what sounds like Korean in a way, and then what is it? So there are lots of systems that Koreans are using, and then if I modify it, would it be still like a sounding Korean? Up to which limit or up to where? So that's what I'm trying to figure out with my music.
Wow.
So wishing me good luck, please.
Well, good luck, best of luck too. And I'm really curious how you're going to absorb all the the Koreanness into music and how it's going to be expressed. So once again, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk about what you studied. You graduated from the Seoul Science High School, okay, and majored in chemistry at Seoul National University. Now, you were even known as the chemistry whiz and won the silver medal. This was back in 1998 at the International Chemistry Olympiad. So what led you to become a composer? I mean, obviously, you studied something completely different.
So like any other Korean kid, of my time, I studied piano and the violin when I was young, and the teachers told me and my parents that I'm talented. I was naive enough to believe it, so I dreamed to be a musician when I was that young, and it was actually very hard. I didn't practice hard enough, and also it's really demanding and competitive. The competitive nature of being a musician discouraged me from just pursuing it in middle school.
I see.
And then I found my new talent and interest in chemistry, which was pretty weird at that point. So it was unique. So I got into Science High School as a chemistry specialist or prodigy, basically. So nearing or approaching to my graduation, I asked myself, should I just give one more chance to music? Because I like chemistry, of course, but I just can't forget about music. So maybe once, and then if it doesn't work, I will quit. So that's when I decided to begin music again,
I see.
In senior year. And and then I found, okay, I can do it, and I can do it. I like it, and I like it more. So that's how I end up with just here being as a composer.
I'd like to ask if you could give our viewers that are watching right now, possibly people that are hesitant of pursuing their dreams because they don't believe in themselves or they're afraid to. Do you have any words of encouragement, any advice for them?
Right. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say I achieved my dream or anything like that, but actually I spent a whole lot of time even before diving into music. It was obvious that I love it, so I tested myself for years. And then I found, okay, I really can't. So I would recommend you, when you have some kind of dream comes, then probably you will have to wait a little bit, and then that's a natural thing. And I think that might be a wise thing to wait to see how deep your desire is. And then if it turns out that you really have a strong desire, I would advise to be a more strategical. Well, you have to actually go to see people who are doing what you want to do, right? So I had to meet a lot of people. I had to go to the classroom. I had to. Well, then you need a little bit of courage for sure.
Yes.
But you can just make it a little bit easier if you make it baby steps, right? So if you divide the steps into smaller ones, and then you can just make the strategy. Like I probably see if I can do this, and then you have to set some goals. That was the re-entrance exam for me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I gave myself like a year and a half of taking and auditing classes, and then if I get into the school again as a composition major, that would be a good sign.
I see.
And I did, and I realized it. And then the next goal is here and here, like that. Yeah.
So it takes a lot of courage and patience, of course, patience. But as you said, it's important to be able to, I guess, find your desire, find your passion first. And if you do have a strong enough desire or passion for something, start by taking baby steps, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Because, if it's your dream, you have to do it for your entire life.
Yes.
And, 5 years is nothing, right?
Okay, well, thank you for your words of encouragement, for your advice. I'm sure that many of our viewers will find it helpful. We have approached the end of our show, unfortunately, but we'd like to ask if you could recommend some pieces to our viewers that are tuned into our show.
Since we listened to 찹쌀떡 already, how about listening to Bounce this time? Because it's not like a Korean tradition or Korean related at all, but it shows the other aspect of my music, the fun. Yeah, so
All right.
I hope you enjoy the concert, the music.
Okay, thank you. And that's Bounce with 2 exclamation marks. Keep that in mind. Thank you once again for joining us today on Heart
Thank
to
you for
Heart.
having me.
Thank you.